Hello, world. Welcome to the Shannon Joy Show. Hello, world, and welcome to the Shannon Joy Show. We're broadcasting live from the Joy Virtual Studio right here in the beautiful Finger Lakes region of New York State. It is Monday, September 22nd. I hope you all had a wonderful, restful, and relaxing weekend. I know that I did. Devastatingly handsome Dr. Joy and I drove down to Baltimore to spend the weekend with our oldest son, Jack. We saw some amazing men's beach volleyball. The boys did so well. And yeah, it was just a wonderful opportunity to spend time with Big D and also to see my son in college. I hope you guys had a great weekend as well. I can see that everyone is raring to go on the live chat. Zen Woman, I see you. Looks like Ranger 1791 was the very first chatter of the day. Good morning, Shannon. And to the chat, HBard36 is with us. We have Buskman on the live chat right here on Rumble, CJP Rumble, of course, Karen Carpenter 27. For everyone who is watching live on Twitter, if you're watching live on Facebook and Substack, to all of our died suddenly viewers, it is great to see all of you on Twitter as well. Of course, the Shannon Joy Show is broadcast on so many platforms. You can also get this show every day at your leisure via podcast. We're on iTunes, Spotify, Stitcher, Pandora, you name it, the Shannon Joy Network, reaching well over 1.5 million eyes and ears every single month. And we can do it without all of you independently, not left, not right, just the truth, news and opinion every single day, straight up, no chaser. And so, yes, we have much to get to today. You guys can see from the headline of today's show at the bottom of the hour, we are going to be welcoming once again Nick Bryant. He is the independent investigative journalist who uncovered Epstein's Little Black Book and also the flight manifesto for Epstein Island, the Lolita Express. And Nick has a lot to say about some of the extraordinary things that have been happening over the past couple weeks as more and more of Jeffrey Epstein's victims come out to speak up and tell the world he wasn't the only perpetrator. There were Johns, there were child predators, and this information is now being covered up by the Trump administration, Kash Patel, Dan Bongino, the FBI, and likely the CIA as well. Tom Massie was with us last week in the Shannon Joy Virtual Studio. Today we're welcoming Nick Bryant, an explosive hearing. Late last week, it was a House Judiciary hearing with FBI Director Kash Patel, and Tom Massie asked Patel if the FBI had investigated Jeffrey Epstein's CIA and intel connections and about the client list, which includes the names of multiple billionaires, rock stars, a magician, and a who's who of corporate and political leaders. He also named former Barclays CEO Jes Staley as one of the men whom survivors were trafficked by Jeffrey Epstein and Ghislaine Maxwell, who is now in a very low-level, low-security club-fed facilities, as more and more within the Trump administration are calling for her pardoning, which is absolutely outrageous. The victims are not being told about this. There is so much to this story, and there is no better source than Nick Bryant. He has been on this beat for well over a decade. He has exposed Democrat child sex trafficking rings. He has exposed Republican child sex trafficking scandals. He is independent. And I was talking to him this morning. He's such a Nick Bryant is an amazing person. I would love to meet him. He is a fellow New Yorker. And he's also one of the closest journalists to so many of the victims. He knew Virginia Giuffre personally. He has something to say about her tragic passing as well. And, he is likely the world's I would say, formative expert on this issue. And what is so incredibly important about this Epstein scandal, it's not just about blackmail. It's not just about child sex trafficking. It's not just about the rich billionaire elites who are very often and very, carefully covering for each other, but it's also about corruption within both political parties and money laundering and the global cartels. And it's the one issue, and he said this today before I came on to talk to all of you, that, this Epstein issue spans both political parties. It spans multiple decades. Both of them cover up, but it's the one issue that could unite the American people. And yes, when a Republican is in office, the Republicans don't care about the Epstein scandal. And when a Democrat is in the office of power, the office of the presidency, the Republicans or the Democrats don't care about the Epstein scandal. And, this is one of those issues that we need to continue to press. And he's working with an organization called it's EpsteinJustice.com, which we're going to be talking about. He has a lot to say. In fact, let's roll the tape. Tom Massie, God bless him. He is standing up so bravely, very, very difficult to do as a Republican when Republicans are in power, but he is joining with Ro Khanna and some of the Democrats to push this issue of releasing all the Epstein files. But he was able to interrogate Kash Patel last week. And this is just a snippet of that hearing. It was absolutely explosive, but this is what Tom Massie had to say. Take a look.
You replied, according to the transcript, there is no credible information that he trafficked them to anyone else. According to victims who cooperated with the FBI in that investigation, these documents in FBI possession, your possession, detail at least 20 men, including Mr. Jes Staley, CEO of Barclays Bank, who Jeffrey Epstein trafficked victims to. That list also includes at least 19 other individuals, one Hollywood producer worth a few $100 million, one royal prince, one high-profile individual in the music industry, one very prominent banker, one high-profile government official, one high-profile former politician, one owner of a car company in Italy, one rock star, one magician, at least 6 billionaires, including a billionaire from Canada.
And that was just one of the segments from that explosive hearing. Kash Patel stumbling and bumbling all over himself, completely contradicting himself. We're going to be talking to Nick Bryant in just about 15 minutes right here on the Shannon Joy Show. So that is coming up. Huge thank you to the sponsors of the Shannon Joy Show. Today, you are going to hear from our friends over at Colonial Metals Group, Native Path Creatine, the satellite phone store, Relief Band, Blood Flow 7 from Juvenon, and of course, PCM and Associates. We could not bring this show to you every day without our sponsors. So a huge thank you to those sponsors that keep this little independent train chugging right along. We also have a little bit, some other topics to cover as well. I know that everyone is talking about the Charlie Kirk Memorial, an absolutely packed stadium. I have some thoughts on the Charlie Kirk Memorial, but I will tell you today, sometimes it's better to say nothing at all. And where I'm going to start this, just thoughts and absolute prayers holding up the family of Charlie Kirk. They are in mourning. It is an absolute tragedy. For his widow and his children, his close friends, associates, and family. We are all praying for all of you. A lot of people have opinions on what we saw at that memorial. They are varying. And it's just not something that I feel like talking about today. Let them bury Charlie Kirk and let us mourn this absolute tragedy and pray for unity in this country. And we will at some point potentially discuss that, but I don't think that now is the appropriate time to do that. So we do want to offer up our prayers for the Kirk family, and may they just experience the love and the peace and the healing power of Christ. All right. So yes, Mark the Regan with a comment. Also in the news, Donald Trump made a statement over the weekend, big announcement on autism today after we have been hearing about, the studies and the review. We heard from Bobby Kennedy Jr. a few months ago that in the fall, we're finally going to get to the bottom of the autism epidemic in the United States of America. Word on the street, and I see you, Mark the Regan. Some people are saying they're going to tie it to Tylenol. That would be highly surprising. Most people in the medical freedom community, most of the people who have surrounded Bobby Kennedy Jr. for well over a decade, Bobby Kennedy Jr. himself, on a mission to expose what is likely the cause of the autism epidemic, and that is the childhood vaccination schedule. Will we hear that today at 4 p.m. Eastern time? That is the time of the press conference. We will be taking a look at that. I'm not getting my hopes up. I am concerned that we're going to have another Pam Bondi empty binder moment as they push out a new narrative. But you know what? Miracles can happen. So we're going to be taking a look at that as well. The rhetoric is heating up. I did mention that tomorrow we're going to be talking to Matt Kibbe, by the way, is going to be joining us in the Joy Virtual Studio tomorrow for a live interview. And we're going to be talking about censorship. We're going to be talking about freedom and a lot of very concerning rhetoric, again, coming out of the Trump administration regarding mass surveillance and a new censorship regime. So tomorrow we are going to be talking about the suspension of Jimmy Kimmel last week for comments that, again, I've reviewed. It seems innocuous, to be honest, in my opinion. And we now know we were absolutely right here in the Shannon Joy Show, one of the very, very few conservative accounts and platforms to highlight how egregious the FCC commissioner was last week, going on the Benny Johnson show and openly threatening ABC affiliates with the pulling of their licenses and or fines from the FCC if they didn't get it right on the Charlie Kirk statements made by Jimmy Kimmel. That then led to, within 24 hours, the full-scale suspension of Kimmel and a very clear tamping down on the protected free speech, right? Jimmy Kimmel was engaging in political speech. So we were right about that. Everyone's admitting it now. The Wall Street Journal is admitting it. Rand Paul has now come out and walked back his statement. Ted Cruz has come out and walked back his statement. They were all celebrating the firing or suspension of Jimmy Kimmel yesterday, but they are now all openly admitting that, it was completely inappropriate for Trump's FCC commissioner to go and use the power of the presidency and his office as FCC commissioner to threaten people who engage in political speech. So we are going to be covering that tomorrow with the great Matt Kibbe here on the Shannon Joy Show. But, this rhetoric is really heating up. And I've been telling, my colleagues on the right, I was concerned last week with the rhetoric of left versus right, us against them. We can't share a country with these people. The left being responsible for Charlie Kirk's assassination, which is painting with a very broad brush, and also very disturbing rhetoric regarding civil war. Well, this morning I woke up, and I don't know if you guys saw this video that went viral on TikTok and people are now concerned about, but this left versus right, we need, to engage with it. We're headed towards a civil war. I've been seeing this rhetoric for quite some time. It has ramped up since the assassination of Charlie Kirk, and more people are calling for not only suppression of our First Amendment rights, but also a digital surveillance system. I have a story here that I linked in the show notes of today's show. The Trump administration is launching a digital app it's a mass surveillance for Americans to rat out their neighbors if they suspect them of, I don't know, threatening speech. The rhetoric is getting to be pretty concerning. And this was pushed out by, a Trump supporter and a MAGA supporter just over the weekend. Tell me what you think about this. I pushed it out on Twitter. Very disturbing. We have to fight for unity. We cannot let these two political parties move us to a place of instability and violence in our country. We cannot turn against each other, left and right. Clearly, there are abhorrent people on the left, violent people on the left. There are abhorrent, violent people on the right as well. But we cannot allow these caricatures to be pushed out, assuming that we have to hate our neighbors and distrust our neighbors just because they have a different political sign in their front yard. And this was pushed out. This was very concerning to me. Tell me what you think about this video, which, again, as I mentioned, has now gone viral on TikTok and is beginning to make its round. Take a look.
I woke up today to thousands of views and likes on my last video. So keeping with the traction, let's try to get this video in front of Donald Trump, in front of President Trump, excuse me. Sir, you took the same oath as millions of veterans in this country, over 13 million veterans in this country, most of whom are conservative. We took the same oath to defend our country against all enemies, foreign and domestic. These leftists are our enemies. This is no longer left versus right. This is good versus evil. You have, give or take, 3 years left. If you call for a civil war, the conservative veterans in this country will take our country back from the evil left Nazis who have destroyed our country, who mutilate our children, who rape our children, who coddle pedophiles. They don't even call them pedophiles anymore. They're minor attracted persons. This is good versus evil, Mr. President. We will follow you. We will take this country back. And what we start here will echo around the world. Italy, Germany, Ireland, France, UK, Poland, Hungary. Everybody's tired of it. Everybody's tired of this leftist, woke bullshit that is ruining our countries. We use words, they use bullets. Mr. President, I implore you, call for a civil war. Call for a civil war and let us do our thing. Let us go door to door, street by street, and clean this country. Please, if you're watching this and you share the same sentiment, send it to Donald Trump. Share it on your page. Whatever. Get this message out there. This is not a joke. I'm a peaceful man. Time for peace is over. I'm willing to fight. I'm willing to die. We are all Charlie Kirk.
All right, so this is the danger of the rhetoric that we are hearing from so many right-leaning conservative platformers, conning Bizarro Khan. This guy saying, I'm a peaceful person, but I'm ready to hit the streets. I'm ready to die. He is calling for conservative veterans to take up the cause. Again, with the rhetoric about the evil left, these leftists are our enemies. Again, we can't share a country with these people. We need a national divorce. We need civil war. I know that you guys have heard this rhetoric, and this is now culminated with his call for Donald Trump to declare a civil war in the United States of America so that he and his conservative veteran buddies can go door to door, street by street, and cleanse this nation. This is Nazi rhetoric, right? So here he is calling the evil leftists, he's calling them Nazis, pedophiles. Very interesting that Donald Trump, his administration, Kash Patel of the FBI and the CIA, also Mike Johnson, the leader of the House, the Republican Party, all engaging in the biggest cover-up today of the biggest pedophile ring, sex trafficking ring, and that is Epstein's child sex trafficking ring, which we'll talk with Nick Bryant about, right? So, I mean, this division between the right and the left is getting absolutely insane. And I'm really calling on, I posted this video out and I tagged some of the highest profile conservative talkers out there. So I tagged Tucker Carlson and Megyn Kelly and Sean Hannity, Glenn Beck, Steve Deace, Daniel Horowitz, among others, saying, listen, like, you cannot, please, like, pay attention to this. We can't use this type of rhetoric because people will take it seriously. And the more that people engage in violence in the streets, the more justification that this administration will have to set up the digital control grid and to enforce or roll out a police state. And we're in very, very strange times right now. I mean, this is from the Patriot Voice. I told you about the new app that is being rolled out by the Trump administration, DOJ and DHS. They're now using the assassination of Charlie Kirk, which is tragically being weaponized. You saw this guy say, "We are all Charlie Kirk," calling for violence in the street and a cleansing, right? In the name of Charlie Kirk. This is why the rhetoric is important. We need to tamp it all down. But the Trump administration is also using this to implement, and this is from the Patriot Voice. You can follow him at TPV_John, who's been very good on a lot of these issues. They are trying to implement what he calls a Bolshevik-esque tattletale Protect USA app to use on the left who have something bad to say about Kirk or who have questions about the official narrative coming from the FBI on the Kirk assassination. And this is so that they can be tracked and fined. Okay? So the fact that Pam Bondi said they were going to aggressively go after those who break hate speech laws, which is rightfully one of the most unconstitutional things that we've ever heard, sets the tone for what could happen. And so it's the Protect USA app. You download it to your phone, and a tally of all businesses who receive reports. You can anonymously report harmful online behavior directly to the employers and demand a change or a firing or whatever it is in order to keep America safe. So this is out of the Chinese Communist Party. This is out of, it's completely Bolshevik. It is turning neighbor against neighbor. It is encouraging snitching and going after your neighbors so that the bonds of trust are broken between the American people. And no, can't do that. All right. So these are the type of things that we have to push back against. And before we go to break, we're going to bring Nick Bryant in just a moment here on the Shannon Joy Show to talk about the Epstein cover-up. There's so much that we missed last week regarding, we are one vote away from Tom Massie and Ro Khanna's discharge petition having enough votes necessary to force a vote to make it a law that they have to release all the Epstein files. So we are so close. Nick Bryant is working with the folks over at Epstein Justice, and they are helping people organize to get that one last vote. So we have a lot to get to later in the show, but something's coming. We're going to also be focusing on the economy on Wednesday and Thursday of this week. Again, Matt Kibbe comes in tomorrow. Wednesday and Thursday, we're going to be taking a tough look at, they have now delayed inflation numbers. So I'm not sure if you saw this report, but the latest, I believe, inflation and jobs numbers, there's a report that was supposed to come out last week, and the Trump administration is now just not releasing it, because they don't want the American people to know how bad it is. This economy is a dumpster fire. It is not a golden age economy. Americans are suffering. And so that is, kind of the other leg of the stool that is about to collapse, I believe. And once that happens, this is when things get really, really dangerous in this country. We have an administration and a DOJ and law enforcement agencies that are willing to lock us down again for whatever reason. And they've already begun to flex in terms of military lockdowns and police state tactics. Also they're elbowing for censorship with these apps. They're using the Charlie Kirk assassination in order to push this stuff and to rile up the right-leaning base. They're using heavy, heavy propaganda, Christian nationalist rhetoric. You saw this guy with the MAGA hat that I just ran for you, calling for violence on the streets, for veterans on the right who support Trump. We are all Charlie Kirk, door to door, house to house. This invites top-down government police state tactics if we allow them to do that. And I think that the economy might be that breaking point. This is what Ed Dowd had to say, and I'll be working on Ed Dowd. Maybe I can get him in this week, but we'll work for him on next week, and I'm going to work on Catherine Austin Fitts as well. This is what he recently had to say about where things are going with the economy. Take a look.
When wealth gaps like this get created, and they take a long time to manifest, and we're at one now, they're settled one of two ways. There's an existential threat to the owners of the wealth, like the French Revolution, or there is a reset, like the Great Depression, and the big New Deal, the New Deal economics. They share again with the middle class. Those are the only two options you have. So it's going to be interesting to see how they go. I think it should be very interesting for people to understand why do they want to create a digital control grid system? Because they want to avoid the French Revolution, and they want to probably not give you a good New Deal. So, this whole digital currency thing, Palantir, this, 24/7 surveillance, and the obsession with that is a real thing. And they probably don't want to give us a New Deal, is my guess. And they're racing to get that, that system in place. And that's why you have to resist any kind of calls for, like we saw Pam Bondi talk about hate speech, which is, Charlie Kirk said that was nonsense. Anything that curtails our speech, no. Anything that gives us less choice and options, like digital currencies, no. I'm a freedom-loving individual, and I know what's coming, and they're going to try. These people cannot admit that the system is that they screwed it up, and in the collapse, they're going to blame everybody but themselves and try to control and take everything.
Very prescient observations from one of our favorite truth tellers, the Ed Dowd, that it's coming. This is inevitable. Nothing substantially has changed in terms of the fundamental problems with the economy and our financial system here in the US. And he's talking about the wealth gap increasing. We've seen billions and billions of dollars transferred from the poor and the middle class and small to medium-sized businesses to the richest elite billionaire class over the past 5-6 years, beginning with the lockdowns of 2020 and that massive wealth transfers, hundreds of billions of dollars that were transferred to a very small percentage. So that gap leads to further and further pain. The American people are experiencing the pain. This is why they will not release the inflation numbers. And this is why they're trying to lie to their base about a golden age economy. But the other shoe is going to fall, and that is when things get frightening. I love to hear from Ed Dowd, resist the digital grid, resist the digital currencies, resist the digital control systems and the surveillance, resist the digital ID, because that's what they're going to use. They're whipping everyone up. They want chaos on the streets. They're going to blame everyone but themselves, Democrats and Republicans, and then they're going to try to move us into a bad New Deal. And that is, you own nothing and you're happy, right? You get your tokens, your digital food stamps, you own nothing, and they seize even more control. So we're going to resist all of it here on the Shannon Joy Show. Now, one of the things you can do, we're going to go to break, and we're going to try to get Nick Bryant set up here in the Joy virtual studio to bring him in. But before we go to break, this is the reason this is coming. The fundamentals, as I mentioned, about the economy are not changing. And if you have not looked into securing your wealth and backing up your retirement with physical gold and silver, or a gold or silver backed IRA, now is the time to do it. Do not delay. Do not wait. Do not think that you have more time than you have. Physical gold and silver, this is the one aspect, your physical property, whether it's having it in a safe in your home or in a safety deposit box or backing up your IRA. This is how you can bridge the gap, because economic insecurity, economic collapse moves in the exact opposite of physical gold and silver. So as the currency is crashing, as the stock market could be crashing, as your dollar could be crashing, that is when land and metals and commodities, that's when they hold and increase their values. So you have to have some type of plan in place. Colonial Metals Group is the company that I've worked with for many years. They are wonderful friends of the Shannon Joy Show. They are amazing. Their staff is unbelievable. And they have a great 1-800 number that you can call to toll free to ask any of the questions that you have about how to get started on physical gold and silver. It is still very, very low. There's a lot of room for growth. It is not too late to get in. And I would recommend you guys check out Colonial Metals Group. So go to colonialmetalsgroup.com/joy. That is colonialmetalsgroup.com/joy, and check them out. Make sure that they know that we sent you. You could get a free gold guide, but I would recommend call that number and have a conversation with them. They will meet you right where you are and help you get all of the information that you need to protect your wealth and to protect your family in these very, very uncertain times. We are going to go to a quick break. When we come back, hopefully, we're going to be able to bring Nick Bryant in. I think he's having just a little bit of technical difficulty, but that's okay. We'll work it out. We're going to hit the commercial breaks. When we come back, we'll take some of your comments, some of your questions, and we'll continue with Nick Bryant. He is the investigative journalist that broke Epstein's little black book. He also broke the client list or the flight manifesto for Lolita Express. He has been reporting on the Epstein scandal for well over a decade. He is a formative authority, likely in the world on this. He's independent, holds both Democrats and Republicans accountable. And we're going to learn from him today about why this issue is so important, why we have to press right now for justice for the victims, not only of Epstein, but of his clients as well. We'll be back in a moment right here on the Shannon Joy Show. One of the missions here at the Shannon Joy Show is to stay healthy. We need to be as naturally healthy as humanly possible so that we can stay out of the medical industrial complex. We don't want to be on pharmaceutical products. We don't want our bodies to be susceptible to viruses or anything that they are subjecting us to. We don't want to have to rely on the medical industrial complex or pharmaceutical companies in order to exist and survive. And that means daily, like a lifestyle of healthy living and getting the nutrients that we need. And as you guys know, collagen is a regular part of my daily routine for health. It's also now a part of my husband, devastatingly handsome Dr. Joy's daily routine as well. And this is because it is known as the crucial building block for your bones, your joints, muscles, tendons, and ligaments, as well as your skin, hair, and nails. So as we age, we just stop producing. We don't stop producing collagen, but it really slows down. You need to put it back in your body. And this is why daily collagen is so very important. And my favorite collagen, of course, is Native Path Collagen. Why? Because it is the best. It is the cleanest. It is 100% grass-fed bovine collagen. So no plant-based anything here. It has one ingredient, nothing else is added. It's hydrolyzed collagen, which is the best kind. It dissolves perfectly into any liquid, hot or cold. It's that clean. It also has only the types 1 and 3 collagens. And as I mentioned, it's sourced only from very, very happy cows, happy, grass-fed, free-range bovine cows. So no marine, egg, or chicken sources at all. It is also the lowest cost on the market per serving with a 365-day money-back guarantee. You will not get better collagen for a lower price point than you will with Native Path, but you have to go to my site, which is getnativepathcollagen.com/joy. That is getnativepathcollagen.com/joy for 45% off. And yes, 95 day? What did I say? 65 day, 365 day money back guarantee. You can send them back empty containers if you don't like it, but you're going to love it. So make sure you get your discount today. Go to getnativepathcollagen.com/joy. We also love our partnership with our friends over at the Satellite Phone Store. In an emergency, whether it's a natural disaster, whether it's a government-inflicted pseudo-emergency, whatever it is, the more prepared you are, the better off you're going to be, and the better you're going to be able to make decisions for your family that will help you in the long term. And so Satellite Phone Store has been our one-stop shop at the Shannon Joy household for everything that we need to be prepared. Whether it is a solar panel or a generator, they have all sizes of generators that you can use in short term, long term, whether it's the Faraday collection, right? Protecting your devices from EMP, EMF, and also protecting your bodies from EMF radiation, 5G, 4G, 3G, you name it, all the Gs. They have the most extensive line of Faraday products, I think, on the market. And they are the highest quality Faraday you can get. From the blankets, the beanies, and the bags. They are always 10% off when you use the promo code JOY. So go to sat123.com/joy. That's sat123.com/joy. Always use that JOY promo code. It always works. And of course, they have the satellite phones. The best way for you to keep in touch with your loved ones when the lights go out. And as we have seen in recent news headlines, the lights are going out more and more. And as they are taxing our grid with this building of the techno digital gulag, they are using up more and more energy sources. And so many outlets are, you are seeing one story after another of predicted rolling brownouts, blackouts. This is coming. This is going to be a reality in the next 24 months because of the expansion of the technocracy and the data centers. And so this is when, we need to be prepared. That's why you need the satellite phones and all of these preparation materials. So sat123.com/joy. That is sat123.com/joy. Let's bring our good Welcome back, everyone, to the Shannon Joy Show. Just a few technical difficulties with our special guest, Nick Bryant. He is an investigative journalist out of New York State, and he is a journalist he broke the Epstein client list, the little black book, as well as the flight manifesto for Lolita Express. So we're going to bring him in just a moment as he gets set up. But LT Oracle of Truth, I see you on the live chat right now. Well, everyone, I'm still in the hospital indefinitely until I can get my oxygen level back up. LT Oracle of Truth, I am so sorry that you're not feeling well. I had no idea. And I will join everyone here listening and watching today in prayers that you are feeling better. I see you said it was great yesterday and overnight and then crashed this morning. I thought I was getting out today. I am so sorry. We will continue to pray for you, LT Oracle of Truth. So many people having health issues, and it's hard to know what is going on in this country. Catherine Austin Fitts talks about the great poisoning, what is happening in our air, our soil, our water, our land, the rollout of the bioweapons, which were the COVID shots, the rollout of new versions of the COVID shots, mRNA, which is self-amplifying mRNA. Whether or not they're shedding, it's hard to know, but it just seems like so many people are having some really, really tragic health issues. And it's hard to know where it's all coming from. We try to grapple with it here on the show. It's one of the reasons we launched Mary Talley Bowden Show, On Call with Dr. Mary Talley Bowden, every weekend right here on the SJ Network. She will be live this week right after the Shannon Joy Show, so 1:30 p.m. Eastern Time. And she has a big lineup of guests this week, including Kevin McKernan and Toby Rogers. So I believe she has 3 guests lined up for her show. And again, tackling some of the most serious health issues that we're seeing in the country. I'm sure she's going to have something to say about the press conference today, 4 p.m., Donald Trump making a big announcement about autism. They have been promising to get to the bottom of the autism epidemic in the United States of America, the onset of childhood autism that we have seen increase exponentially over the past 10, 20 years in this country. And so they are having a press conference to release the findings. I'm certain Bobby Kennedy Jr. will be there. It'll be, HHS. Very interesting to see what they are going to say about that. We're going to keep an eye on that. And I'm sure that, as I mentioned, Dr. Mary Talley Bowden will have something to say about that as well on her program that airs right here live on the SJ Network. So make sure you schedule in an extra amount of time next week, this Wednesday, for Mary Bowden. And of course, we will absolutely be praying for you, LT Oracle of Truth. We've got your back. Slim Jones is with us today on the live chat. I'm just going to check in very quickly with Ed and TJ to see if we have Nick Bryant ready to go. Feel free to pop in and just let me know if we have him set up, because I really do want to talk to him about what went down last week. As I mentioned, an explosive hearing, questioning from Tom Massie and others, asking Kash Patel about his contradictory statements, multiple contradictory statements regarding a client list, right? This idea that Jeffrey Epstein didn't act alone. He didn't work alone. And there are, much larger stories that, coming out of the Epstein scandal that implicate the power structures that run things today in the United States of America and also the globe. The idea that Epstein, in addition to being a money launderer and perhaps a weapons trafficker, which we've learned from Whitney Webb and her reporting, but also obviously he was potentially, peddling and blackmail and coercion, providing to rich elites, billionaires, millionaires, as you saw Thomas Massie mention, titans of industry. He mentioned 6 billionaires, rock stars, musicians, magicians, politicians, and the powerful people that make things happen today, potentially being involved, listed in that book, and dealing in the trafficking of young underage girls. So why is it that Jeffrey Epstein, he gets arrested for child sex trafficking? Ghislaine Maxwell arrested and convicted for child sex trafficking. Well, who did they traffic these young girls to, right? There always has to be a client. And this is why so many people are outraged, because everyone in this country knows that there's a client list. Everyone knows that there are clients. And Massie has now come out recently in a press conference, and he's saying, he believes at this point, not necessarily that Donald Trump is in the client list or is implicated. He might be. We don't know. We need the files. But he is emphatically stating that Donald Trump is engaging in a cover-up. And he's covering up for billionaire donors and some of his elite friends. And that is why Kash Patel and Dan Bongino are doing a complete 180. They're saying the exact opposite of the things that they have said for the past 5 to 10 years regarding the Epstein scandal. And so this is a big issue. We cannot let this go, because it is exposing the filthy, corrupt underbelly of the power players behind those who serve us and represent us in Washington, D.C., both Democrats and Republicans. And that's why this case is so important, because both Democrats and Republicans want to cover this up. In fact, this was why I was so interested in the very beginning, over 10 years ago, when I first read the reporting by the Miami Herald. And it was about this sweetheart deal that was negotiated for one Jeffrey Epstein. He was a no-name at the time. No one knew who he was. But for some reason, almost a dozen high-powered attorneys, lawyers from all over the country, a dream team, were flown into Florida to batten down the hatches for this guy who was in trouble for having sex with underage girls. and providing sex to clients with underage girls. And what was the most interesting to me at the time were two names, Ken Starr and Alan Dershowitz. And I said to myself, well, this is strange because back in the day, Alan Dershowitz was Bill Clinton's guy and Ken Starr was George Bush's guy. I don't know if you guys recall, but all of the scandals, Monica Lewinsky and the little blue dress and the prosecution of Bill Clinton and the guy who was leading that prosecution, that investigation, Ken Starr, right? They were on opposite sides of the political aisle. Dershowitz was the Democrat guy, Starr was the Republican guy. So why are these guys all of a sudden best friends and headed down to protect this one guy? Well, it said to me at the time that both parties were very, very invested in making sure that there was a cover-up that protected not just Epstein, but the people that he serviced, the people that he potentially had blackmail on, the people who were on his flight log in the manifesto, titans of industry, as I've mentioned. And so we have now been subjected as the American people for well over a decade of cover-up. And isn't it interesting? I mentioned in the opening monologue of this show, right, that when George W. Bush is in office and the Republicans are in power, they don't care about the Epstein scandal. The Democrats do. That's when Miami Herald, I believe, did some of their best reporting. Then when the Republicans are in office, Donald Trump, his first administration, right? They talked about the Lolita Express. They talked about Bill Clinton and his relationship with Jeffrey Epstein. I remember Sean Hannity talked about it every single day ad nauseum for almost 2 years when they were trying to take out Hillary Clinton in that election, if you recall. And so once Donald Trump got into political office, they didn't care about child sex trafficking or Jeffrey Epstein. He had full 4 years to go after him. He was arrested, but then miraculously, he got suicided under the protection or under the purview of Bill Barr, who was the attorney general at the time. So nothing happened, right? Republicans didn't care about Jeffrey Epstein when Donald Trump was in office, but the Democrats did. Well, then when Biden was in office, right, we had another swing in the election. Biden comes into office and all of a sudden Democrats don't care about Jeffrey Epstein anymore, right? And all of a sudden Republicans do again. So now it's like back and forth. And the story that you get out of the whole thing is that they're both in on it. This is where this is where I think the uniparty is so clearly seen, is in this Epstein scandal. And again, Epstein wasn't just about child sex trafficking. That's probably the most salacious and horrifying aspect of what Epstein did. But he was also a money launderer for the rich and powerful. There's a very good interview with Whitney Webb. It's about 2 hours long. I forget the name of the guy. It dropped last week. I would suggest that you all go to her website. It's unlimitedhangout.com. That's unlimitedhangout.com. Or go to her Twitter handle because I believe that she posted it there as well. But the picture that she paints, this is the big picture. Money laundering, weapons trafficking, human trafficking, right? Massive amounts of corruption spanning both political parties and multiple continents, right? Epstein was embroiled in all of that. And it wasn't just about the sex trafficking. It was the whole system. And what she describes is a system essentially being run by competing criminal cartels, right? They battle with each other, but they control everything and they work together. A government gone wild. And she points to essentially, probably about 50 or 60 years of this. And that is the importance, I believe, of Jeffrey Epstein. So it's one of the reasons why I continue to report it here on the Shannon Joy Show, and we will continue to report on this. It's one of the reasons that I really wanted to get Nick Bryant onto the show today. So I'm not sure if he's ready to go. I think what we're going to do is we're going to go to break and run a couple commercials, and I will check with production to see if we are able to get Nick in. Little disappointing. I hope that we're going to be able to do this. Maybe if we can just grab his audio, We don't necessarily need to see them. I'm not sure what's going on, but I'm going to check on that. We're going to go to break. And I'd love to hear from all of you as well on this issue. Again, really proud of Tom Massie, who is just absolutely refusing to let this go. And I think that he is on a path of truth, that we need to get to the truth about Jeffrey Epstein. I'm not buying that we're never going to get to the truth. I'm not buying that we can't get to the truth. I'm not buying or accepting that we can't get justice in this country. I know it's hard to get justice, and I know it's challenging, and I know we're up against so many powerful forces that don't want these things to come to light. That doesn't mean we don't fight for them. And I love what they're doing over at EpsteinJustice.com. And that's the organization that Nick Bryant is working with. We're going to talk about what they have tomorrow. They actually are going to have a high impact, no cost live Zoom training tomorrow at 8 p.m. Eastern time that will equip you as an average American citizen with the truth and the tools to take action so that we can break through this story once and for all. It's EpsteinJustice.com. Again, we are one vote away. It is completely partisan, save Tom Massie. I believe Rand Paul came out and voted to open up the files as well. So thank you to Tom Massie. Thank you to Rand Paul. We are one vote away from Tom Massie's discharge petition kicking in and forcing a vote on a law that would compel the FBI and intelligence agencies and this government to release all of the Epstein files. That's how close we are to this. So we're going to go to a quick break. When we come back, hopefully we will be all set with Nick Bryant. If not, we'll continue the discussion and reschedule him for later in the week. But in any case, we're going to get to this. So if you guys have questions, if you have comments, I would love to see them on the live chat. Might just be you and me mano a mano today on the Shannon Joy Show if we can't get our guest in, but hopefully we will, and we'll figure that out. So let's hit a quick break. We'll be back in a moment right here on the Shannon Joy Show. I am absolutely blessed to be sponsored by this amazing product. This is a miracle. It is the Relief Band. I don't know if you guys have heard me talking about Relief Band. I have it here. I brought it with me. I don't know if you can see it. This is nothing short of a miracle. I have told you all about my daughter, Mimi, and her chronic car sickness since she was a tiny little baby. My poor darling Mimi, every time she got into the car, if she was in for more than 15 or 20 minutes, would get so sick. I think she probably threw up in my car over 200 times from the time she was a year old till she was 4 years old, until she got a little bit older. But even persisting into her teens, every time she gets into the car, if it's too long of an extended period of time, she gets so sick, nauseated, feels like she's going to throw up. And it's been constant. Well, we recently found Relief Band. They're sponsors of the Shannon Joy Show. And I used this with Mimi for our trip to New York City. And it was nothing short of a miracle for nausea, migraines, headaches, morning sickness. If you have a loved one who is pregnant and just suffering with morning sickness, people who are struggling with illness and nausea from chemotherapy, this absolutely tackles it. It's an amazing, patented, clinically proven, FDA cleared technology. And basically how it works, I won't go into it in detail, but this is the Relief Band. I don't know if you can see it, but it's just this little guy. And what you do is you take the gel, you put this gel right on your wrist. You put the Relief Band on your wrist, right? And it sends this little pulse, like this little shock, right, into your wrist. And it essentially, for whatever reason, I don't know if it's magic. We'll get into the science of it in another read. But basically, it sends a signal to your brain. Then it signals to the stomach to reduce nausea and provides immediate relief. It is an amazing, I did not think that this was going to work. They sent it to us. I'm like, there's no way that this thing is going to work. It was a miracle. 6 hours that Mimi spent in the car on our trip without even a smidgen of nausea or headache. It was an absolute absolute miracle. And right now, the Relief Band is 20% off for the Joy audience. So if you are interested, reliefband.com, that's reliefband.com, 20% off with the JOY promo code, and they're going to send you free shipping as well. This is an amazing device. I cannot recommend it enough, especially for people who have dealt with chronic, nausea and headaches. Thank you to our friends over at Relief Band. Again, the website, reliefband.com. That's reliefband.com. Promo code JOY for 20% off. Show. Without further ado, I think we do have our friend Nick Bryant in the Joy virtual studio ready to go. He is an investigative journalist. He is the journalist who uncovered Epstein's Black Book. He also uncovered the flight manifesto for Lolita Express. He's likely the world's foremost expert on the Epstein scandal. He is going for Epstein justice, and he's going to hold Democrats and Republicans responsible. And this is why we love him. He's independent. You can follow him on Twitter. His handle is @Nick_Bryant. And the organization that he is working closely with now, which is an amazing organization, EpsteinJustice.com. That is EpsteinJustice.com. They are moving to get this discharge petition moving forward. They need one vote. Nick Bryant, welcome to the Shannon Joy Show. So glad we were able to figure out the tech difficulties. You look fantastic. I can see you. Can I hear you? I can't hear you yet. Hold on. Just hold on. I can see you. You look great. Can you hear me? Okay. So let's just hold on for our production team to make sure that we get your audio hooked up and ready to go. And well, I guess we don't have him. Buskman. I'm no SJ, but I like your hubby. And I'm also devastating. What's going on? Let's just bring our producers in. What's up? So what do we have going on with Nick? So I could see him. He could see me. He could hear me.
Can you hear me?
Yeah. Okay. 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 So we are waiting. I'm just listening to Ed right now. So we're almost there. I could see Nick. Nick could see me. He could hear me, but I couldn't hear me. CJP Rumble. Write it on a piece of paper and hold it up to Nick. Let's do sign language interview here on the Shannon Joy Show. Or yeah. So I'm hearing Nick, but not seeing him. M. Garth Hilton. Seriously, how has this become so difficult? It's not rocket surgery. Map 2022. We can see Nick. Oh, Suka Koala. Ginger works well for car sickness, seasickness, roller coasters, etc. I see you, Suka Koala. About the Relief Band. We tried everything for Mimi. We tried ginger. We tried, obviously, Dramamine, which actually worked, but we had to stop using. We're talking about car sickness and Relief Band. By the way, you guys saw it. This is the Relief Band. I love it. I have it right here. Everything, the poor girl. And we were never able to, the Dramamine was fine, but it made her drowsy. So if we were, ever going to, any type of event where she needed to have a pulse, we obviously couldn't knock the poor girl out with Dramamine. So yeah, MAV 2022, try driving slower. I am a notoriously a bad driver. And Mimi does say that it's way worse when I'm driving because I'm like, I'm a bad driver. I've never, ever, ever claimed to not be. Suga Koala, glad it works for your daughter. Oh yeah, absolutely. It really does. Relief Band. It's amazing. Okay. I do think that now let's try again. We have Nick Bryant on the Shannon Joy Show ready to go. Let's pull him up and see if we can't begin this interview. We'll try to keep you a little bit later. Hey, Nick, how are you?
Great. How are you?
Oh, thank you, Jesus. Thank you, Jesus is a miracle. You sound great. You look great. I can see you. I can hear you. Can you see and hear me?
I can see and I can hear you.
All right, fantastic. Well, welcome to the Shannon Joy Show. And why don't I just shut up? I want to hear from you. I mean, there's been a lot that has gone down since the last time I talked to you, which was a little bit over a month ago. Kash Patel with just the most absurd statements about there just being there are no clients, Nick. So all of this that we've been talking about with the Epstein scandal over the past, almost 2 decades is all much ado about nothing. Donald Trump says that this is just a Democrat hoax, and Kash Patel says there's no there are no clients, completely contradicting himself. I mean, he was bumbling and stumbling in that explosive press conference last week, or not the press conference, the House Judiciary hearing, which I'd love to hear from you about. And then also, I'd love to talk to you about that press conference. You were at the press conference with the very brave Epstein victims who are standing up, speaking out, saying emphatically, yes, there are clients. Yes, there are more perpetrators. It's not just Maxwell. It's not just Epstein. So there's a lot to get to about this issue. But, are you satisfied with what has happened over the past couple of weeks as you continue to press for that justice?
Well, I've been very disappointed in the government.
Yeah.
And I cannot hear you.
It's okay.
I cannot hear you.
You can go ahead. Nick, can you hear me now?
I can hear you now, yes.
Okay, so just go ahead.
Well, I'm very disappointed with our government when it comes to Epstein, as you know. But the thing about Epstein is it's not going gentle into that good night. The government has tried to cover it up, administration after administration after administration, but now there's a critical mass. It's like a Pandora's box. Epstein is Pandora's box. The Bush 2 administration built Epstein's box, and the Obama administration didn't crack it open. The Biden administration didn't crack it open. The Trump administration didn't crack it open, but Trump cracked it open. And the thing about Pandora's box, once you crack it open, that the curse comes out, and there's no putting the curse back into the box. And I think that he has learned that I believe that the Trump administration initially thought that they could open the box, the Epstein box, aka Pandora's box, and crack it open and then ultimately slam it shut. But that hasn't worked out at all. In February, late February, Bondi said that the Epstein files were on her desk. And then a few days later, she provided us with documents, and that they were basically a nothing sandwich. Actually, in 2012, when I released the Black Book and also the flight logs, I put more incriminating information on the internet than Bondi did. And the Black Book that I had, that Gawker and I put up, we redacted the names of the adults, and then under massage, there's a number of victims. Some of them aren't victims, but a lot of them are victims. So we redacted their last name and also their number. And when I saw the Bondi version of the book that I put up on the internet, everybody's name was blacked out. So
Wow.
At that point, I knew that the government wasn't going to cooperate with us. But then Bondi said that she'd been burned by the FBI field office. And that was her excuse. And then what I find to be amazing is that Bondi and Patel say that their minions went through all of Epstein's, all the stuff that they empowered from Epstein. When Epstein was arrested in 2019, the first thing the FBI did was open his safe. And I mean, like the next morning, they were opening his safe with the saw. And what's amazing is Bondi and Patel, or certainly Bondi, wants us to believe that the FBI just started going through that material within the last couple of months in February or before February. The FBI was going through that material in 2019 because it wanted to know what exactly was on that material. I think that there were possibly blackmail scenarios in that material. And the New York Times reported at that time, the New York Times reported that there were discs of hundreds, if not thousands, of underage girls. And Business Insider reported that there were hard drives taken out too. So there was a lot there. And on July 6th, the Trump administration released a very strange document. No one signed it. And it said that there were 300 gigabytes taken out of Jeffrey Epstein's home, which I agree with. And it said that there were over 1,000 victims, which I agree with. But then it said that Epstein acted alone and there was no blackmail involved. And I adamantly disagree with that.
Right. I mean, how could he even engage with over 1,000 victims? I mean, that would even it defies common sense that he would be able to, and also it completely contradicts the testimony of so many of the victims, and it also contradicts the reporting that you mentioned of the New York Times that actually disclosed the names of some of the perpetrators, correct?
Yes. Yeah.
So what do you make of, so I agree with you. I mean, this is, you mentioned in our conversation this morning that you believe that the Epstein cover-up is so powerful because it is likely the one thing that could unite all Americans, the left and the right, Republicans and Democrats, behind this one issue. Can you extract on that?
I wrote a book and it came out in 2009, 2010. It was called The Franklin Scandal. And I spent 7 years on that book. And Epstein is more or less almost a carbon copy of that network. That network was connected to intelligence. It flew kids around the country. There was blackmail involved. Many of the, and there was a corrupt grand jury involved. Actually, with the Franklin scandal, there were two very corrupt grand juries. But with Epstein, we just saw one corrupt grand jury. And if you go to Wikipedia and read about the Franklin allegations, it's nonsensical. And people have tried to introduce some sanity into that page, some reality into that page, but no one, it's like Omaha Beach in 1944. No one, you can't move an inch. And I think that the dark malignant corner of intelligence that does things like Franklin and Epstein, I think that they overshoot that page because we've been burned, as Americans, we've been burned a number of times. I think we were lied to about COVID. I think that was definitely created in a lab, and a lot of information has come out since then. We were lied to about weapons of mass destruction in Iraq. We were certainly lied to about the financial meltdown in 2007, 2008. But with this, it's different because it shows it. This is different because American children have been molested. And that is a major problem in our society. According to the Centers for Disease Control, 25% of underage girls have been molested and 5% of underage boys. And people in the field think that 25% of underage girls is slightly conservative, and people think that 5% of underage boys is extremely conservative. So a lot of Americans have felt this. And I think that, and if people weren't molested, I mean, most people know someone that was molested. So, and that's a very, very harmful to a person's psyche.
Yeah.
So with this issue, the right and the left are completely polarized right now, but with this issue, I firmly believe it can bring the right and the left together. I think it's probably the only issue that can bring the right and the left together.
Right. So the Franklin scandal incriminated primarily Republican political movers and shakers. And Epstein, despite the fact that Trump is a Republican, but it was the Epstein scandal that implicated primarily Democrat, right? It was, I mean, he was tied to Bill Clinton and Hillary Clinton. And so you reported on both of these scandals, the Franklin scandal and also the Epstein scandal. And that kind of formulated, you know, your hypothesis now, your theory now, that these two parties, while they will oppose one another, you know, for the masses, for the show, when it comes down to it, they're both very corrupt. And at the highest levels, they're going to cover up for each other.
Well, a federal legislator from Tennessee, Tim Burchett, actually came out about a year and a half ago and said, my colleagues are being blackmailed.
Wow. There's a question on the live chat.
Blackmailed in honey traps.
Yeah. Can you explain that? There was a question on the live chat about the extent from M. Garth Hilton. Nick, who are the politicians who are most vulnerable if they are unwilling to vote with Massie? But also, who do you think has the most to lose? I mean, when you talk about the honey trap and the coercion and blackmail, do you have an idea of how many of our elected officials are being blackmailed or coerced? Or, you know, you said it was Tim Burchett that said that his colleagues were being blackmailed, you mentioned?
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, if we just look at, there's a lot of documentation that's came out about Epstein. I was the guy that put the black book up, and how the black book came into my possession it's kind of an interesting tale. Alfredo Rodriguez, who was Epstein's house manager, stole the black book, or a copy of the black book from Epstein, stole it. And
wow,
he was trying to pawn it off to one of the attorneys that was representing some of the Epstein victims. He called it the Holy Grail. And the attorney called the FBI. The FBI did a sting and impounded the black book, what became known as the black book. And Alfredo Rodriguez circled names that he said were in cahoots with Jeffrey Epstein and his pedophilic enterprise. And then Virginia Giuffre sued Ghislaine Maxwell. Ghislaine Maxwell sued Virginia Giuffre for defamation. And in that case, Virginia named a number of the people that had molested her. So between Alfredo Rodriguez's circling and the names and the names that Virginia Giuffre pointed to, we can kind of get a fairly decent barometer of some of the people that have been blackmailed. Like, for example, Rodriguez circled Ghislaine Maxwell, and Virginia Giuffre named Ghislaine Maxwell as a perpetrator. Rodriguez circled Ehud Barak, the former prime minister of Israel and also the former head of Israeli military intelligence. And Virginia said that she'd been molested by him. Les Wexner was also circled by Rodriguez, and Virginia said that she'd been molested by him. Alan Dershowitz was circled by Rodriguez, and Virginia said that he had molested her. Bill Richardson, who was the former New Mexico governor, and he was Bill Clinton's energy czar, his name is circled, and Virginia said that she was molested by him. And Epstein's partner in crime, other than Maxwell, was Jean-Luc Brunel. They ran a modeling agency together that was more or less a front. And Virginia said that she'd been molested by Jean-Luc Brunel, and actually his name is circled too.
And this is compelling because. So
well,
this is we're on a delay. So what I want to understand is that this is compelling because it wasn't like Virginia Giuffre was collaborating with Alfredo Rodriguez and they were sharing information. These were two separate sources that were providing this type of information. Rodriguez in the names that he circled in that little black book, and then Virginia in the preparation for her lawsuits, right? And all of the legal lawsuits that she had. So these names were independently exposed by two separate people not working together. Right. It's a corroboration. What in your mind would be Trump's motivation for keeping this covered up? If he's not exposed, if he's not implicated, why wouldn't he just say to Kash Patel and Pam Bondi and the CIA? Apparently the CIA has a file as well, which was exposed by Tom Massie in the latest round of questioning in the House Judiciary of Kash Patel. But what would be the motivation for Trump and his administration to close the lid on this?
Well, Trump could be compromised, and he hung out with Epstein quite a bit. And according to Michael Wolff, who is a journalist that got to know Epstein very well, Epstein went into his safe and pulled out pictures, Polaroid pictures, he thought, of Donald Trump and young girls, although he's used different adjectives, but girls of an undetermined age were sitting on Donald Trump's lap and they were topless. So it's entirely possible that Donald Trump, but I think that, like with the Franklin scandal, I think that what is more important to the people that deploy people like Jeffrey Epstein is that I believe our political system is rife with blackmail, and that is it's imperative that that's protected.
That's what makes everything work in Washington, D.C., eh?
I believe it does. And people think that, no, there can't be, all these guys can't be blackmailed. And when we're dealing with politicians, we're generally dealing with alpha males who are highly sexed and very arrogant. And nothing makes people stupid like sex and arrogance. I mean, nothing.
Right.
So I think it would be relatively easy to compromise politicians. And political blackmail goes back to the start of our republic. Alexander Hamilton was having an affair with a 23-year-old, and the 23-year-old's husband was blackmailing Alexander Hamilton. And a muckraking journalist came across the story, and he outed Alexander Hamilton. And the muckraker, because Alexander Hamilton and Thomas Jefferson had a lot of antipathy towards each other, the muckraker thought that Jefferson would give him an appointment in his administration. And when he didn't, the muckraker outed Jefferson for having sex with one of his slaves called Sally Hemings. And DNA has also shown that. So blackmail is something that's been political blackmail has been something that's been with us forever. I'll give you a couple of recent examples. In addition to the Franklin scandal, I wrote a book called Confessions of a DC Man, The Politics of Sex, Lies, and Blackmail. And I wrote that with Henry Vincent, and he ran the largest gay escort service that's ever been uncovered in Washington, D.C. And Larry Craig, who was a very conservative family values senator from Idaho, was calling Henry quite a bit, getting gay escorts. And he was getting gay. There was a documentary called Outrage, and it showed that Larry Craig was getting escorts from other people that ran services like that. So Larry Craig, and he was in Washington, D.C. for 25 years, first as a representative and then as a senator. And he was in the Minneapolis bathroom, and there's kind of a signaling involved, I guess, in bathrooms where if someone slaps their foot against the ground, then the other person realizes they're hot to trot, and then they get amorous in a booth. So Larry Craig, sitting U.S. senator, tried to pick up a vice squad in a bathroom in the Minneapolis International Airport. So how out of control is that? I mean, a kid with after school special doing an after school special with a smartphone could probably compromise Larry Craig.
Unbelievable. Who do you believe is doing the blackmailing?
I think it's intelligence of some sort. And I don't want to say CIA, and I don't want to say Mossad, but I think that there's a dark, malignant corner of the CIA, and I think there's a dark, malignant corner of the Mossad that does these types of things. I'm sure that there are many CIA employees and personnel that are not aware of this at all. I'm sure that many are, but I'm pretty sure that a lot of them aren't. And the same thing probably goes with the Mossad. Go ahead.
Yeah, Whitney Webb has done an enormous amount of investigation. Her theory, and I would say Catherine Austin Fitts would likely adopt this theory as well, that it certainly is sex scandals, it is honeypot or honey trap situations, it is, blackmail and coercion, but that the Epstein scandal is much larger, and that it is tied to intelligence, and that it involves financial crimes, money laundering, weapons trafficking, and that this started, basically what Whitney Webb asserts is that right around the time of, the taking out of the American mafia, right? These cartels that were dealing in, obviously, drugs, sex, weapons trafficking, those type of things, that the intelligence agencies, kind of in an attempt to kind of take them down, essentially adopted their operations, and that we're really dealing with criminal organizations. A criminal element has entered into our government and is behind a lot of the setting of the traps and the manipulations, and also the coercion and blackmail. Your thoughts on that?
Well, I'm in agreement. And the mafia, I live in New York City, and actually people in the mafia owned a number of the gay bars that were in Greenwich Village at that time. And the reason why they owned them is so that they could blackmail people that were compromisable and in those bars. So, and as I said, it goes back to Alexander Hamilton. It goes to Larry. And I'll give you another example. Dennis Hastert was the Speaker of the House. And right now we're having great difficulties with the current Speaker of the House. But Dennis Hastert was the Speaker of the House, and he had been a predator going back 40 years or so. He was known as a strong arm specialist in the House. He, as I said, he was the Speaker of the House, which is constitutionally the third most powerful man in the country. And a whistleblower FBI whistleblower named Sibel Edmonds said that the FBI was aware of Hastert's shadow life when he was Speaker of the House. And then all of a sudden he's retired from government, and then one of his victims is blackmailing him, and he's making these withdrawals from his bank account, and the FBI goes after him instead of the victim that's blackmailing him, which I thought was very strange, because it doesn't fit into. When I was researching the Franklin scandal, I got to one of the blackmail photographers, and I was trying to get my mind around all this because there's no books on it, really. I wrote a book, and Whitney's written a book too, but the when I was writing the Franklin scandal, there was no books about this type of stuff. And
Right.
so I went to the blackmail photographer. I said, how does this work? How is this perpetuated? And he
Right.
goes, once you're compromised, it's like you're on a yacht, and it's a beautiful yacht, and it's a beautiful day, and you can have anything you want on the yacht. But if you decide to get off the yacht, the people on the yacht are going to make sure that you drown. And for some reason, Hastert decided to get off the yacht. And I think he was making millions of dollars as a lobbyist. And I think that this is just my own surmise, that he was supposed to cut someone in and didn't. And I think that that's why the people on the yacht drowned Dennis Hastert.
You want to know an interesting story, Nick, that I've told before, but not often, about the underbelly of these power structures? I don't go to Washington, D.C. It frightens me there. I'm frightened of it. I don't even like the place. If I drive near it, it feels black and dark. And for a few years, I attended CPAC, which is the conservative Christian organization. What Turning Point USA is today, CPAC was like the big organization. And that's where all of the big conservative Christian speakers would come. And it was a big kind of festival. And they had Radio Row, and you always heard about it on right-wing talk radio. And back in the day, I was a Republican. I thought Republicans were the good guys and the Democrats were the bad guys. And started my show, went down on a press pass. I went to 3 or 4, but there was one, I stayed with some women that I had met. We were protesting Common Core, the rollout Common Core. We did a lot of organizational work together, and they were from California. And we ended up sharing a suite because it's expensive to stay in Washington, D.C., right? And we ended up sharing this suite. It had 4 rooms. I had my own room with like a bathroom and a bolt, right? So I had my own kind of hotel room, but there was a common area within the suite, and there were 4 women staying there. And I come in bright-eyed and bushy-tailed, all innocent, thinking, oh, this is so great. Everyone's conservative and wholesome, and this is CPAC. And I mean, the first thing I noticed about CPAC was that everyone was just drinking their faces off. It was a huge party thing. It was not very conservative at all. But I walked into the suite one day after working all day and going to a lot of the different meetings, and there were 7 or 8 men in the common area in the suite with this one girl, and they were all talking, and they're like, oh, hey, I run this, I'm a pastor and I run this conservative thing, and I'm a conservative here and I run this more, I'm thinking, oh, that's strange. Like, I guess they knew each other, and I made a mental note of it. That night, the first night we were there, I'm in my room and I'm in bed early because, as I mentioned, Washington, D.C. frightens me. And I was in bed by like 10:30 every night. And all of a sudden, the place just, I hear literally all night long, the door opening, closing, different men's voices the entire night. I deadbolt my door. I'm like, what is going on here? And it was like Grand Central Station in that suite. And so this went on for a couple nights. I was highly troubled by it. It wasn't until the very end of the meeting that one of the girls she said to me, this is what she admitted, because we were packing up and getting ready to go. I'm like, this is the craziest thing. I mean, obviously something very untoward was going on. But, the girl admitted, she said, well, I'm actually a sex addict. I have a husband and children, but I come here for CPAC she said this to me. I come here to CPAC every year and like do this thing. And I believed her at the time. I'm kind of like, wow, that's the craziest thing I have ever heard. It occurs to me now that she probably wasn't a sex addict. She's probably a prostitute. But I was so innocent that but I never went back to CPAC again. I was so disgusted with this thing, and again, that was the last time I ever went to CPAC. That is a true story. That is honest. I was in her room when she was packing up, and I was talking to her and just absolutely mortified by the whole thing. But these were the conservative Christians. These aren't even the liberals. I mean, liberals don't even care about that kind of stuff, but these were the ones who were like, and it was such a formative experience for me about how horrifying that town is and that places in proximity to power. And I saw it with my own eyes.
Well, when I wrote the book with Henry Vincent, Confessions of a DC Mem, The Politics of Sex, Lies, and Blackmail, he had quite a odyssey owning that escort service. And he was a mortician. He was trained as a mortician. He grew up in a very repressed part of West Virginia, a southwest corner of West Virginia. And his family was very, very religious. And he started realizing relatively early in his life that he was gay. So, and he also wanted to be a mortician. So he went through the Cincinnati Mortuary School, I think it's called. And then ultimately he ended up in Washington, D.C. And Henry is very a laid back, shy person, not boisterous at all. And a couple of his gay buddies would go to after a long day at the funeral, a couple of his funeral home, he and a couple of his buddies would go to this version of Chippendales for gay people. And he met a dancer and he liked the dancer. And they went out a few times, and the dancer said, you know, I can make up to $1,000 a night as an escort. And Henry thought to himself, And then the dancer said, I know someone who's selling their escort service for like $13,000 or something like that. So Henry, with the impetuousness of youth, bought the escort service. And Henry's a brilliant marketer. He opened up the yellow pages, and usually escort services are fly-by-night operations and they don't pay their phone bill. So he went through the yellow pages calling escort services, and a lot of them were disconnected. And so he called the phone company and said, I will pay the arrears on that number, and if you give it to me. So that's how his escort service just exploded. Like I said, he was very repressed in his youth, and now that he owned a gay escort service, it was kind of like Xanadu to him. And then he got a call from a CIA asset named Craig Spence, who also is in the Franklin scandal, and he was just a nasty piece of work. Craig Spence was a minion of darkness, no doubt. And Craig Spence was spending up to $25,000 a month on escorts from Henry. And we're talking like mid 80s. And then Henry wanted to disengage from him and just a number of the people. And Henry realized that he was over his head and that there is no disengaging from these people.
It does seem like it is like, yeah. It does.
And go ahead.
They brought him in. Go ahead.
They brought him. They showed him where the hidden cameras were. They showed him where the secret room was. And actually, Epstein had hidden cameras in a secret room in his New York place. And I'm sure that all his homes were wired for audiovisual blackmail.
Unbelievable. Well, and I think that most regular people, myself included, do not want to consider these things. Like, we do not want to consider that these people who say these things that seem moral and right, and who present themselves in a certain way, can be the exact opposite. And I think it's that naivete. Unfortunately, my naivete was shattered with that experience at CPAC, right? That was the beginning of me completely distancing myself from the Republican Party and conservatives, because I saw very clearly the grotesque hypocrisy from my own eyes. I witnessed it myself. I saw it myself. And I don't think other people have the opportunity to have that kind of vantage point. And very often people who do, they're in compromised situations themselves. So they don't ever want to talk about it again because they've seen it. And so it's like this layer and layer upon layer of secrets and corruption and cover-ups and lies until it just gets so black that it seems like that's what we're dealing with today. That's why everything is so bad, because they're all so bad. You can't be good in Washington. I don't know that you can be good in Washington.
Well, it goes back to the yacht metaphor. A lot of people in Washington are on the yacht, and they know what would happen to them if they decide to get off the yacht, and they're taken very good care of when they're on the yacht. And with Epstein, it's going to be hard, as I said earlier. Epstein is a Pandora's box, and it's going to be very, very hard to put the curse back into the box. I don't know if that can even happen at this point. But Kash Patel and Bondi are saying that Jeffrey Epstein had no co-conspirators other than Ghislaine Maxwell. When we know for a fact that Sarah Kellen, Leslie Groff, Adriana Ross, Nadia Marcinkova were definitely part of that machine. Ghislaine Maxwell built that machine to get as many underage girls as possible. But Kellen, Groff, and Ross and Marcinkova were definitely part of that machine. And we could indict them tomorrow. I mean, the New York Times did a full-page article on them. Politico has done a huge article on them. We could indict those women tomorrow on multiple counts of child trafficking, which is a heavy sentence in the federal system. It's 15 to life, and they would roll over on the perps. I mean, we don't even need the Epstein files. We just There's a lot of victims out there that could testify. This whole thing, I'm sure that there are a lot of victims that would be willing to testify if they could be safe. I mean, our government has to feel safe, and they'd be more than happy. And then you've got all these people that colluded with Epstein that could be indicted for child trafficking. I firmly believe that if the Department of Justice really wanted to solve this case, it could be adjudicated, and the perps would be in prison within 6 months. I firmly believe that.
Because there is so much out there already. What do you think about the recent hearing, Tom Massie naming names? I mean, more and more names are coming out. Tom Massie has been pretty vocal and very brave and courageous, I believe, along with Ro Khanna. So here we have that bipartisan, that potential for Americans to come together, right and left, in unity on something that is good and just, and that would be a good thing for this country. Ro Khanna, the Democrat, Tom Massie, the Republican. They had the hearing and the press conference for the victims, many victims standing up for the first time and speaking out, showing their faces and their names. And I think that just those victims coming together, I saw a camaraderie among those women at that press conference where they began to feel stronger. I think that they began to feel strength in their numbers and the sharing of their stories, and to see that there were Democrats and Republicans standing behind them. And then just recently, the House Judiciary Committee and just utterly hammering Kash Patel, calling him on his hypocrisy. And really, as you're mentioning, getting closer and closer to breaking this open. You think it's a tipping point. You don't think that we can put it back in the box. Does that mean you're optimistic that we can get justice for these victims?
If I wasn't optimistic, I wouldn't have started Epstein Justice, which is a 501c3. And I would strongly suggest to your audience that they check out EpsteinJustice.com. We're having a webinar tomorrow at 8 Eastern Time. And at these webinars, we show people how they can put pressure on their legislators. And we also show them, we're also putting people into geographic regions. So we're growing, we're bigger. And if I didn't think that we could do this, I wouldn't have started Epstein Justice. But I firmly believe that the American people are good people, whether they're on the right or on the left, they're good people. And there's extremes on both sides that make the other side look crazy. But I think overall, the American people, and according to a CBS poll, 89% of Americans want everything about Epstein to be disclosed. 89%, which is kind of weird that there was 11% that don't. I don't get that. But anyway, 89%.
I have a question from M. Garth Hilton about that one last vote for the discharge petition that Tom Massie has put in place. Are there any vulnerable legislators in the House that would pay an electoral price if they do not vote with Massie, or if they do not sign on to this or join this? I mean, is there anyone? And what he's talking about here is focusing our political apparatus like a laser, right? Rather than kind of broad asking everyone to do this, finding certain elected officials that would naturally be required, that people would expect would sign on to this and try to push it forward. Is there anyone or any grouping that you think would be vulnerable so that we can pressure them and say, hey, you need to do the right thing here?
Well, that's the objective of Epstein Justice, is that we're going to pressure all the legislators. Okay. And we want this to be cracked open. The government wants to cover this up, but we're not going to let, I don't think us as Americans are going to let it. Epstein has gotten too big now. There's too many lies. Mike Johnson, the Speaker of the House, shut down Congress early so it couldn't vote on Massie's bill. And then he said, and this is mind-boggling to me, he said that Trump was an FBI informant infiltrating Epstein. He's since walked that back. But how can
outrageous?
This is the third most powerful man in the country. How could he be such an idiot?
Unbelievable. Well, yeah, Mike Johnson, we had a lot to say about Mike Johnson. So afraid of this getting out that he shut down the House of Representatives. He closed it down early, sent them all home, gave them an 8-week vacation. I think he shut it down like 2 or 3 weeks early or something like that. And so he needs serious scrutiny, for everyone who is talking about a revival in the United States of America. A Christian, I'm a Christian, right? And with the tragic assassination of Charlie Kirk. Yeah. But they're talking about a revival and conservatism and evangelicals and Charlie Kirk and all this stuff. And it was this great rally and everyone was so moral and Christian, but like, how can they not see this in their own administration and their own people? That's what I can't understand.
Again, I harken back to the yacht metaphor. Donald Trump very well might be trying to put a lid on this because he might be compromised. But I definitely know that our political system is rife with compromised politicians, blackmailed politicians. And I think that the onus is fallen upon Trump, whether or not he's compromised, to make sure that this doesn't come out, the political system doesn't come out, and the political system that's predicated on blackmail. And I believe that's why we're seeing Trump and Bondi and Kash Patel telling so many lies, is they've got their walking orders. Unfortunately, that's the way it is. When Acosta, who gave Jeffrey Epstein the sweetheart deal, testified before the House, I thought that, he had said that he was told to stand down from prosecuting Epstein, even though the Department of Justice was aware of 40 victims. He was told to stand down because Epstein was intelligence. And he's retracted all of that. He has said that the deal that he gave Epstein is just the average deal, which is total bunk. I tweeted about it. He actually wrote a letter in 2011 that talked about all the pressure he was under to give Epstein her deal. So,
wow.
And what they what they did was really horrific because there's the Crime Victims' Rights Act, and victims of crimes have to be apprised of the adjudication of their perpetrator, and they do get to confront their perpetrator. And what the Department of Justice did was not give, completely contravene the Victims' Crimes Rights Act. And then it sealed the deal that it made with Epstein that gave all his co-conspirators blanket immunity. So this is something, and some of his co-conspirators are listed right there in the non-prosecution agreement. Like I said, if our government had a will to do this, this could be done. We could start indicting people tomorrow.
Gareth Hilton has a comment here, and I've heard this myself, about Mike Johnson, Republican, so-called conservative, who shut down the House of Representatives in order to avoid a vote to expose all of the documents from Epstein, the actions taken by Tom Massie. He said that, why do you think Johnson was put into the role? If I had to guess, he's probably one of the conservatives who's trying to cover something up. And he said a conservative sex addict. And I think you mentioned that it's now been established that Mike Johnson has admitted that he was a sex addict or addicted to pornography at some point, or that has been established, correct? Or no?
Well, Mike Johnson has an app on his phone called Covenant Eye, and his 17-year-old son has an app on his phone called Covenant Eye. And what that app enables them to do is monitor each other's consumption of pornography. If Mike Johnson is into macabre pornography or child abuse material, he's definitely compromised. But why would he shut down an investigation into child sex trafficking? That makes no sense. Obviously, there's someone that's telling him to do that.
Right. It doesn't seem as if it's from his own. I mean, there would be no reason to do that. No innocent or benign reason to shut this down other than someone's telling you to do it, and there will be a repercussion. You know, I've also seen, and we got to go. I kept you a little bit longer, by the way, guys, because we got started with Nick so much later than we had meant to. But I wanted to give you the full hour, so that's why we're going a little bit late today. I'm seeing some on the right try to portray this. They say, you know, you can't say the word pedophile. None of these guys were really into pedophiles. They were just into young girls. And I'm seeing this weird kind of normalization, like, well, you know, if she's 14 or 15 or 16 and she's matured, then it's not really pedophilia and it's not really abuse. And that really pisses me off when I see conservatives try to pull that bullshit, to be honest, and Christians try to say that somehow, you know, it isn't abusive. What are your thoughts on, and there are a couple accounts out there on Twitter that are trying to push this narrative and kind of blur that line. What are your thoughts on that before we let you go?
I actually get attacked by some of those people.
Yeah.
With Epstein, the cover story is that the youngest girls were 14 years old. And there were 14-year-olds amongst the victims. But I've been in the anti-trafficking community, or researching and writing about anti-trafficking since 2002, 2003. And I've spoken at a number of large conferences. The National Center on Exploitation has a international summit every year. I've spoken at 3 of those. The Society for the Study of Trauma and Dissociation has an international meeting, and I've spoken at one of those. And I've spoken at a number of conferences. And people, I've gotten to meet therapists that deal with victims of sexual abuse. And I've talked to 2 of them, and one of them is an eminent psychologist in this field. Everybody in this field would know her, and actually people that aren't in this field would probably know her. But she had a client who she believes was under 10 years old when she was trafficked by Epstein. Wow. And I know another therapist who also believes that she who was under 10 years old who was trafficked by Epstein. And there's a Melbourne daily newspaper called The Age, because Epstein did a lot of bad things in the Virgin Islands, and it found that those girls were as young as 11 or 12. And this is something that the Department of Justice, I believe, knows about, but they've made sure it doesn't come out, and the mainstream media has colluded with the government to make sure that a lot of information doesn't come out. And I've never seen one mainstream media outlet over the years. I've been digging into Epstein since 2012. I've never seen one mainstream media outlet come out and say, we need justice here. Not one.
Right. They'll report when they're compelled to, or their guy isn't in office, right? When it doesn't matter and nothing can really happen, that's when they'll put the reports out, which is just outrageous. All right, Nick Bryant, I want to thank you so much. You've frozen just a little bit, so we might want to just refresh quickly. As you guys know, Nick Bryant, one of the foremost experts in the world on sex trafficking, child sex trafficking in the U.S., both political parties, particularly in this issue with the Epstein files. And he has been doing utterly amazing work. He's a very special person, an amazing investigative journalist. And I appreciate you so much, Nick Bryant. I don't know if he's still with us or if we lost him, but we got the good stuff. I mean, we were able to get a full hour with him, which is what I was hoping to do today. Sorry to all of you for the technical difficulties that we did have. Sorry to Nick Bryant as well for those tech difficulties and that we couldn't do a proper goodbye to him. But yes, this movement is amazing. His organization, I did not realize that this was his organization that he started, EpsteinJustice.com. That is EpsteinJustice.com. You can follow Nick on Twitter. He does get attacked by a lot of conservatives who would like to delineate between a 14-year-old victim and a 13-year-old victim. And somehow it's okay if she's 14 or 15, but not okay if she's 13. The whole thing is just disgusting. And Nick Bryant does need our support. So please go to EpsteinJustice.com to support those efforts and also follow him on Twitter. I promise you that we will have Nick Bryant back on the show again. Sorry for going late today. Sorry to my production team for going late, but this interview, I believe, was too important to cut short. And Nick Bryant had a lot to say, and I wanted to make sure that he was able to say it all. We need justice for the victims of Jeffrey Epstein, and also the victims of the clients and the Johns that Jeffrey Epstein serviced, period. And we're not going to let this go. We will not let go of the truth, and we'll be right there with Nick Bryant to fight for this and to continue to fight for this. And I agree with him. I think we're close to breaking through, all right? So stick with us. Let's support the efforts of Tom Massie and Ro Khanna and so many of the organizations that are pressing for this justice. Thank you to all of you for being with us today on the Shannon Joy Show. We'll be back tomorrow to do it all again.